Donald Trump regresa a la Casa Blanca.
En un mundo marcado por crisis económicas, migración masiva y guerras en el planeta,
la economía se desmorona, las fronteras se tensan y las alianzas globales están en juego. Trump lo supo aprovechar. ¿Pero cómo?
¿Será este el liderazgo que enfrenta el caos global?
No es solo política, es el futuro de Estados Unidos en un mundo en llamas.
Y su influencia no termina en el voto. La conversación digital, el impacto del podcasting y plataformas como la de Joe Rogan amplificaron su mensaje como nunca antes.
Prepárate para una conversación que revela las fuerzas que redefinen el poder en América y en el mundo.
What a night, huh?
Yeah, a good night.
What is your perception about these elections?
My perception is a lot of people did not go out and vote. The Democrats did not get anybody to go out and vote like last time.
But do you expect the way that Donald Trump win this election? Because we have 7 swings so important, for this election. And if you analyze the number, Donald Trump win everything. It's like if you check the map of the United States, it's almost Republican. What happened in these 4 years?
What happened? Just go to your local grocery store and you'll see. You gotta pay a lot more out of pocket than 4 years ago. But 4 years ago, we were actually going to work. People were staying home. People were sometimes going out to shop, but mostly staying home.
Okay, I have a question for you because I have the perception that in the United States, the people is living in a bubble. And I want to explain you why I think this. Because this economical crisis that we have in the last 4 years is happening in all the countries around the world. It's not United States, And if you analyze the numbers, United States is the country that is having the best economy right now. It doesn't matter the facts. The inflation is happening around the world. It's not just in US. But what is your perception about this? Because like I explained to you, I came here to the United States 7 years ago. And one thing that caught my attention is when you watch the media, you only see that the topics is just what happened in the United States. And when they start talking about something that is not from here, it's because you have a big war or a big natural disaster. But I have a perception that the people here is not understand what is happening around the world. What is your perception about that?
Mostly it's true. Americans like to mostly think about what's going on in the USA. Right now, as you've seen with the election, it looks like America first has won. But also, a lot of people are getting tired of the war in Ukraine. They're getting tired of the war in the Middle East. So obviously, Americans want to go back to that normalcy they felt before, 2020.
Yeah, it's very interesting because, when you think in your wealth, the economic is very important, And of course, that we have a really bad moment with a big inflation that start with the gas and start affecting all the prices. And you start analyzing how is the market in the last 4 years, and if you compare with the Donald Trump performance, you see that with Donald Trump, you have a really low numbers, a really low deflation. Right now, we are in a very high inflation. So I think that it's very interesting because you have all these factors, like the economy. You have all these factors that affect the way that is perceiving the old environment. It's like a macro environment. And the situation and the perception is really bad in the people. So Donald Trump take this big opportunity. I think that Donald Trump take a really good opportunity, seeing like all the lackness that we see in the Democratic Party. And he take like the big arm to came to this election and try to win. And I think that the people here in the United States is having all these issues and seeing him like an opportunity of change. And this is why the people is looking right now. The people want change. And this is the reason that I really believe that the people choose Donald Trump. It doesn't matter they have the felonies. It doesn't matter all the controversies that happened in the past. It doesn't matter how he managed the COVID. I think that the people is desperate for that change, no?
Yes, they are. They completely are. They want to go try something else, But also, you got to look at the media, how they change the perception.
Yeah.
Like, look at what they're doing for the past couple of weeks. They were doing nothing but, going down the southern border. But in reality, all the apprehensions of the migrants went down instead of trending up.
Just like it's something that caught my attention is the way that the media is managing everything, the way that try to show the image for one person. And I was very interested in this election to see or to check how is the power of the media today, because Kamala Harris was a person that in these 4 years was completely disappeared. We need to be honest, She was a person that was in the dark all this time, and in just one moment when Joe Biden resigned or decide not continue this career, this ride, immediately it's like a big machine start working for her, And that's the thing that caught my attention, because she turns in a person that was completely unknown for the public, and start appearing like an angel, like the people that, like the woman that can save this country. So for me, it's very interesting how this big machine that is the media is moving everything, because they have her interests, and this is something very interesting to analyze. I want to ask you, because one thing that caught my attention is the power of podcasting today. These independent people that is creating content. And you see that Donald Trump take a really good strategy. He started appearing everywhere, And Kamala I don't know, it's like, I don't know if it was a bad strategy, or is that she don't feel confidence to do it. But I think that is something that really affect the weight and the perception that people have with these different candidates, no?
That is correct. Because, for Donald Trump, he should thank his son, his youngest son. Because his son is like really into the podcast. He's like telling him, hey, Dad, you should go on this podcast show, If they invite you on, go. You have nothing to lose, right? And then, here's Kamala. Joe Rogan wanted to have her for many hours on his podcast show. And her campaign replied, only 1 hour. 1 hour.
That's so stupid.
Yes. And Joe Rogan says, I'm not going to do it if you're not going to do over an hour.
It's crazy, because I was seeing this interesting data about the power that podcasts have. I just want to take the case with Joe Rogan. So this episode with Donald Trump have more than 11 million views. If you take YouTube, if you take Spotify, if you take Apple Podcasts and all these players, And I was analyzing the data about the power of the media today. So to have this same amount of numbers, you need to take ABC, NBC, MSNBC, Fox News, and CNN for a completely whole week in the prime time to be able to have these numbers. This is something that shock. The people lose the confidence in the media.
It looks like they have. Because, the media is always trying to feed the people something. It's like when they fed the people Kamala Harris, remember? When she first started out, she had the low approving ratings. All of a sudden, you hear her more often. They're like saying, hey, the DNC they have a agreement with the MSNBC, which is, if you look at MSNBC, they're towards, the Democratic Party. And if you look at Fox News, they're geared towards the Republicans. So, of course, MSNBC went to high gear along with CNN. But another thing is people like more of the podcast, because when people watch those debates and they saw, how, those moderators did not check everybody, what their statements, if they're correct or they're false. Trump was blaming this, Biden was blaming that. Actually, Biden didn't know where he was or what he was doing. And that's why he dropped out. But, as you saw Kamala, they asked her specific questions, but she never answered those specific questions. But when they went on those podcasts, when he asked the specific question, Joe Rogan, actually, Donald Trump actually had a great, phenomenal interview.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He humanized the figure of Donald Trump, because you saw him always fighting, in these debates, and he threw a lot of shit. and he played in the way that he liked to play. He's a showman, But one thing that I really appreciate about this podcast content is he's allowed to humanize the guy. And you see that he's very funny in the way that he expressed and shared his thoughts about some things. And this is, I think that it was a key, in all this process, because you start seeing, I want to be honest with you. So 90% of the content that I consume here in the United States is in English. I listen a lot of podcasts, and he was in all these podcasts. So he was with Carson Tucker, he was with Joe Rogan, he was in PBT, he was in all different channels, and I had the opportunity to listen really cool ideas that he have, and the way that he tried to protect the economy and the way that he tried to protect the American, the American people, that I think that this is what the people want. A person that protect the economy, protect this society, and you take the immigration, and you take the economical crisis that we have, So you take all these factors and that play a key role, in all of this.
Also, the crime. How the people are watching on the TV, California and all these states, they're showing all these people, they're doing grab and go, they're taking the TVs, they're taking all the watches from the stores, malls, they're getting slaps on the wrist. And, people are tired of it. It's like last night, California voters voted to strengthen the penalties of certain crimes last night. That's how serious it got in California.
Yeah, it's the situation of California is really sad,
I know.
Because it's a place that have everything. If you see it, is have the perfect weather. It's so beautiful. You have beautiful natural resources over there, mountains. You have the Pacific Ocean.
Also, you have the 5th largest economy in the whole entire world.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if California became its own country, it would do great. It would be the 5th largest economy in the world.
It's crazy. And you start seeing like the decadence, like the way that everything is turning really bad. You start with the drugs. You start with the high prices. You start seeing with the homeless crisis that is happening right now. That is crazy. It's like a zombie movie, and you say, "What the fuck has happened?"
Oh yes, especially like there was a homeless encampment in front of Nancy Pelosi's house in San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
She was the former speaker of the House.
Yeah, he tried to kill her. It's crazy.
He actually beat up her husband.
I think that Donald Trump really deserved to win this election, and I want to give you my reasons. He's a person that is working the last 4 years. We have a lot of controversies with Donald Trump. One thing that I don't like about him is the way that he lost the election the last 4 years, and he was not able to recognize that. If you see what happened yesterday, is Kamala Harris lose, and she make a call. She said, "Hey, congratulations, you win." And the way that he managed, January 6th and all the situation with the transition of power, because one of the things with Donald Trump, he's a person with a big ego, and he don't like to lose. Nobody like to lose. But I think that when I see him that face of him, that put me a lot of red flags about this guy. But I want to be honest with you. He was working very hard for almost 4 years. He was 3 assassination attempts. It's crazy. He have a big attacks from media around the world. Let me share something very cool with you. I take the time to analyze yesterday live on YouTube the analysis in Latin America about this election. So I take the opportunity to listen NTN 24. That is a very important channel over there. And I was listening CNN. And when I was hearing what these people was sharing about, what we expect about the elections, I was saying, what is happening? What is this disconnection? They don't know what is really happening here. They have a very wrong perception about what happened in the United States. And they was very secure that Kamala is going to win. And I was seeing the last 2 weeks numbers, and every week Donald Trump was getting a little advantage, but you see it yesterday. So all this media was really surprised when all these things happened. And I was like, okay, something is happening here that the media is disconnecting about what is happening here in the United States, you know, in terms of the perception, in terms of what is happening right now. And when you have this disconnection, you start sending wrong information to the public. So it's funny because when I was start analyzing all this information, I say, okay, this is what we call the fake news, you know, the way that they change the perception or they change the news on the information. It's crazy, you know. Look, I want to share something that happened to me, and that happened to me today. So I was having this conversation with my partner, and I was talking about the way that Donald Trump managed the COVID, you know, because he made a lot of mistakes, you know. And I was saying to her about this situation with the bleach, you know, and she said to me, okay, show me in which part he's saying that he suggests the people to inject or eat or drink bleach. And I want to be very honest with you. I really think that he say it, you know. And when I start taking like all this video and all this news, you know, and I open ChatGPT, and I was sending all this information and feedbacks, I just really noticed that he never say that, you know. He was talking about the disinfectants, but if you analyze the data, we have more than 20 different kind of disinfectants that is using in medical, you know, and we can inject it or we can drink it, you know, in different doses. So that's something that really, you know, shocked me, because it's like I swear for God that if I was thinking that was real, you know, but it's when they start saying something and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, and the people start believing that, you know. So you see that manipulation of the media, you know, and the way that he can manage the perception and the way that he can change it is crazy. It's completely crazy. So, of course, Donald Trump was working for the last 4 years to win this election. Joe Biden definitely, he was not ready for this. You know, I think the Democratic Party make a really big mistake when you start seeing the signs, you know, and you see the performance. What is your impression about that day, like that debate of Donald Trump against Joe Biden?
The picture was on the window.
Yeah.
There's a saying like that. Well, when I saw him, when Joe Biden like lost his, like he had like that, he had to think, and he had made those expressions, but it sort of looked like he wasn't there, right? So obviously, we knew that he wasn't there. You know, he's what I saw from it. He is old. You know.
But you know something is because if you analyze the numbers, Donald Trump is just 2.5 years younger than him. You know.
Oh yes.
So it's something that he get old in a really bad way. I don't know how much affect these 4 years on him, but if you turn to the 2020. He's a completely different person that is 2024.
Oh yes,
it's crazy. It's crazy. And what is shocked me is like how the Democratic Party was not able to see that, you know, because they are talking with him all the time, you know. They are making plans. They are working together. So who is the person that really is running this country? No? It's something that really caught my attention.
Well, probably it was his chief of staff that was running the country, if you ask me.
Yeah, that's something that really shocked me, you know, because this election was so crazy. It's a lot of things happening, You know, a lot of things happening and everything was changing. And in one moment, Kamala came and the election started changing because she was leading the polls in one moment. And she maintains for almost 1 month leading the polls. But what do you think what happened with Kamala Harris? What was that thing that the people start losing the hope, the good intentions about her?
Let me tell you what happened. Here's what happened. At first, when at the convention, when she first was talking about, what she wanted to do was she wanted to go after the price gougers at the stores. Like, if you look up Kroger, they admitted to price gouging, right? So obviously she promised to go against those people with the price gouging and all that stuff. And the next day, here you got Mark Cuban going around, telling other people, like the news channels, like, oh, no, she's not going to do that. And he's going to the other, CEOs, executives, and all the big donors for the DNC. He's like, oh, don't worry, she'll be just like Biden. Everything will be calm, usual, and all of a sudden, she got the endorsement from Dick Cheney, which, if you look at the Democrat base, they dislike that guy with a passion because of him, we went to that war in Iraq and we're still there. And also, she invited his daughter to stomp with her around, like a never Trumper Republican. It's like the Democrat base is like, what the F is this? I'm like telling myself, what is this? This woman would vote to stab us in our eyes if we're not looking. And she brings this woman on stage with her. It's like, don't you have any class? Like, this woman doesn't have the ideals, what the Democratic voters have. And that, what I think has really turned a lot of people off. Because if you look at 2020, more people voted than this election.
Oh, yeah.
So obviously, that was a huge turnoff, what she did, that all of a sudden people are like, it's going to be the same. It's going to be like, she's not going to go after these drifters and all those things. She's just lying.
That it's like I never see her authentic face, I never see her like talking and responding questions about important topics, One of the things that really caught my attention when was one of these media asked the question like, how, if you had the opportunity to do something different that Joe Biden did in all these 4 years, what is your action about that? And she wasn't able to don't respond. She
said, nothing, I would change nothing.
Yeah.
She did not say, I would have told, hey, get to the table, to both the Lebanese, the Hamas, Israel and Iran, or, try to get more into between Putin and Zelensky to end that conflict, Ukraine and Russia.
It's crazy because I think that the Democratic Party make a lot of mistakes, And one of the biggest mistakes is if you analyze everything, even the choosing the vice president Walz was a really bad election, Even in the state of Walz, he lose. and
actually, he won in Minnesota, which he's the governor of.
But in this election, the Republican Party was winning the state, It's crazy. It's crazy. Even if you see all this process and all these things that was happening, all the Democratic Party was suggesting Shapiro to be the vice president. He's going to be a really strong person that can go with her, And for some reason, she moved with this guy, and the people was not connecting, The people was not connecting with that. And if you start analyzing, she do a really good debate with Donald Trump, and she was pushing to have a second one with him. And Donald Trump say no. But I think that this is the only green light that you see about her in all this time. Because you never see a propose. And you start analyzing what Donald Trump start proposing, what Donald Trump said, and the security that he was saying, because he was start proposing like, okay, I want a better country. I want to protect the economy. I want to protect our borders, because it's happening a lot of things right now. And she was not able to handle that kind of moments and situations. And I think that this is the key. This is the key moment that the people start saying, okay, I don't trust her, you know?
Yeah, it's completely understandable, especially on that day when John Deere said they were removing their operations from the USA to Mexico, right? So who made a statement that the very same minute was Donald Trump. He said, hey, if you do that, I'm going to charge you over 200% tariffs for you to bring all that machinery from Mexico to the USA if you do that. But from Harris, you heard crickets. She'll just say, I'm so sorry, you guys lost your jobs.
Yeah. It's a really interesting data that we're seeing in PDB podcast. And Donald Trump was sharing something really nice that really caught my attention at the moment. And China started building one of the biggest car factories in Mexico, because right now, for first time in history, the hour rate in Mexico is even more cheaper than in Middle East, So China started making all this construction, and Donald Trump appeared in that equation because they call. And Donald Trump say, hey, look, if you finish this infrastructure in Mexico and you start bringing your cars, I'm going to put so much taxes to you that you're not going to be able to compete in the market,
Tariffs.
Yeah. So we're going to create all this environment to just not make that your business is possible. And you know what happened? China stopped everything. Because they say, okay, we need to wait the elections because we're not going to keep investing in this if we have all these, all these barriers for the president. And I don't know what is going to happen. We're going to see in a few months. But this is the way that he's handled the economy. He's trying to protect the American citizens, especially with China, because it's a big conflict with China right now.
Oh, yes. China has one thing. It's called the Silk Road Initiative, which they're like building some infrastructures outside of China. They're doing that in Africa. They're doing it all over in Asia to sway these countries like, Kazakhstan, all the bordering countries, they're trying to get a sort of way, to bribe them in a way. But it's also to own them. So, like Montenegro, they're building all those highways in Montenegro. Mm-hmm. And they're telling them, hey, we're building you this highway, so you're going to owe us all this money. So obviously, they have leverage against the Montenegrin government. But the thing is, Montenegro is a NATO country. It's also is an applicant for the EU.
Yeah.
So that starts a problem. It's also trying to go to Poland to open up trade, military ties. They're trying to do it all over.
Do you think that United States is worried about how China is growing around the world, especially in Latin America? I want to take this South and Central America. China turns in the number one. It's the number one provider of all this country in terms of economy. And I don't know if the United States lose the perception what is closing the doors to make business with Latin America, that is in the same continent, and Latin America has so much potential as a partner, but China is taking that opportunity. Is that really fear of United States with what is happening with China?
I believe it is. Because usually, according to, how America, Monroe Doctrine, all those days that, Latin America, South America, Mexico, all the Caribbean was under the American sphere of influence, right?
Yeah.
So that's how they're getting worried about it. And plus, USA, how many governments they overthrowed, like the one in Chile, and then they put Pinochet in. That was USA that actually did that. Yeah. We actually invaded, Haiti. We made that country so unstable that's how it looks like today, because we just put in the bad people in, like the Dominican Republic. Also, we put in some of those bad people, and a lot of people had to die. And
it's crazy, because one of the most interesting cases is Chile.
Yes, it is.
Chile turns like the most big economic in Latin America, and they changed the focus of the business. They start focusing in China, because they are in the Pacific. So it's a very important port over there, and the economy is really good right now over there.
Also,
they're switching that economy, no?
Yes, and they're also part of. They're also close to Antarctica too, and they're also claiming some lands in Antarctica too. Chile is.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I really want to see how Donald Trump is going to manage the economy, because he have a really good numbers at the beginning in the first 2 years, and the pandemic came, and of course that moved everything. So I'm really interested to see how he's going to manage the national economy of this country.
Well, if you look at it before Trump took over office, Obama, when he took over back in 2009, our economy was in shambles. When he left it like a stronger for Trump, and I think he took it to a little bit to the next level, because people were finding jobs. There was jobs aplenty. I remember, every other 3 months I would get a raise at work. Like 25 cents, 50 cents, for $1. That was good. And the pandemic came as along. Then people just chopped everything off. They're like had to stop everything. Like literally, gas went down to $1 a gallon one time. I saw it was at 99 cents. I remember. Like I took a photo of it.
When I came to the United States 7 years ago, the gas was $1.98, 2.2. And I remember in the COVID times here in Florida, start getting almost for $5. Was 4.8. I remember one time. At that moment, I have a Murano, a big car, and I was struggling. I want to be honest with you. I was really struggling, because when you need to put so much money just to move for your work and do your things, is you start seeing like all the prices start going high and high and high. For me, I want to be honest with you. For me, these 4 years was difficult in some moments, because everything started going high. The prices of the houses, the rents, the gas, the food. So when you touch the pocket of the people,
it hurts.
The wallet, that hurts a lot. So that create that perception. So what do you think that is going to do Donald Trump in these 4 years? What is your expectations? Is positive? Is negative? What do you think about him? Because let me tell you something. I think that he's the most important political figure that appeared in the last 20 years. And in the last 20 years, for me, Obama is in that, in that
Of course,
path.
he has to be.
But the way that he changed the politics in this country, I'm not saying for the good or the bad way, it's just the impact that he have in this society. I think that is transforming the way that we are going to perceive the next election. So what is your perception about him, and what you expect in this next 4 years?
Well, I expect he says that he's going to cut taxes, right? And he's going to cut...
taxes in big corporations.
Yes, corporations. And he says that he's going to eliminate the taxing on the tips, right?
Yeah.
So all the people, who are the waiters and waitresses, they'll be able to keep that money without having to declare it, which I think is good, because at the end, sometimes, those owners force them to share it with the house, like with the other people, like, the bus boys or the dishwashers, or the bartender.
Yeah.
So that's a positive.
I think that he is a person that really understands about business. So I think that the U.S. economy is going to grow a lot. Even like I explained you at the beginning, the U.S. economy right now, it doesn't matter. The fact is the most biggest economy around the world.
Yes,
even
is.
China right now is in a big crisis, and we have a really low level of unemployment. We have an economy that is growing, and if you take these numbers in Europe, in America, in Africa, in Asia, nobody's having that numbers. So I think that even with all this grown perception that we're having, it's like United States is doing really good. And just let me say something. I think that this change is going to start switching the perception of the people. And when you start having this changing of perception, you start seeing like how everything start growing. Just let me explain you something. In my job, so I manage a lot of reservations for different hotels and campgrounds and resorts in all United States, you know? And I started seeing how in the last 2 years, the prices for the day, for the week, and the month was growing so bad, you know? I'm saying, this is the first time that I'm changing all these prices for all these, you know, places, but I never see like a big change. It's crazy, you know, it's really big. So I was saying like, how this affect just a little market as the RB that in the United States is huge, you know, that's economy that moves millions. But if you start taking all of this, is affecting everything, you know? So when you have this change of perception, I think that we're going to have a really good numbers. I want to ask you for something that is one of the most hot topics in the United States, immigration. So the way that Donald Trump is managing the immigration is basically blocking everything. What is your perception about that?
Well, there are some people that are coming here. They want to have, you know, asylum because, you know, they're in danger at their home countries, like in Venezuela or, you know, Honduras. Their crime is out of control. You know, U.S. government is trying to pressure them, but it's not pressuring them. But what they did is wrong. Is that to claim asylum, you have to go to, you know, to the U.S. border. You gotta get like appointment with the, you know, with the U.S. United States, you know, immigration officials, right? Instead, they should do it like at the U.S. embassy in whatever countries they are in. Yeah. So they could get a decision right there on the spot.
I think that the people is abusing for. Look, let me explain you something. When I came here, I came 7 years ago, and I came for a really hard situation that was happening in my country. I own a business. A lot of people started threatening me. And I came here to the United States, and I talked with a lawyer, and the lawyer said to me, hey, look, your case is you have this delinquency, that the people is attacking you, all these things, but this is not a political asylum. This is not a case for that, you know? I really suggest to just regulate your situation in another way, because the people is getting advantage of this. And I came in when Donald Trump was the president to this country. I came in 2017, you know. Okay. I started seeing a lot of Latin people that was just asking for asylum just because, yeah, it's the way that you receive a work permit and you receive a social security for the next 5 years, and yeah, I just figure out, you know. So when you start having these people that is abusing the system, is when you create all this environment, because United States needs people, you know. We need it, but we need to have a filter. When you have people that is crossing the border without any check, you know. For example, when I came here, I came with a visa, you know. I got a visa in Colombia, it's not easy. And they make you an exam, and they make you questions, and they analyze everything. They analyze your finances. They analyze everything to give you a visa, you know. But the problem that I have is when first the people start abusing the system. A second one is, yeah, we don't know who is coming here. So this is a big concern. So I think that this is the second topic that made a really strong Donald Trump in front of the U.S. people. I just want to see how he's going to manage this situation, because when he was the president in 2016, he promised to take the big wall and Mexico is going to pay for that. Nothing happened, you know? The wall was not constructed. Mexico don't pay for that. So everything was like promises, campaign promises, you know?
Yes.
And this is what I want to see. Okay, what are you going to do that is going to be real, you know? Because I understand the Senate and you have the House, everything blocked you, you know? But in this particular case, Donald Trump win everything.
Actually, they didn't call the House yet. What I know.
It's going to win, trust me. I think that it's going to win. I'm seeing the numbers right now. I think that it's going to win. It's very close to do it. So we're going to have a 100% Republican country. This is good for the country?
A trifecta, because you got got a Republican Supreme Court, you got a Republican, executive branch, and you got a Republican legislative branch.
Yeah. United States is a country with really strong institutions. It's not like it came and one person as Chavez is going to take the power and is going to change everything. Just for a particular thing.
Oh yeah, but whatever we do, just look up Project 2025.
Okay. Well, what is that?
It's a one thing that the Federalist Society and the other conservative, very right-wing people came up with a plan, right, for a project. They call it. It's like they plan to do some other things. These are what they're thinking together. I don't know if Trump wants to implement them or not, but they want to. Some of them they want to get rid of that program for the lunch, meal for the students, the poor students, which I think it's they make it a law that kids have to go to school for like certain hours, and and I believe that schools should provide free lunches to the children because they're forcing them to be there. And the government and Project 2025 eliminates that, but also, and it really introduces the spoil system. Like there's a good old saying, so the victor gets the spoils, which was that whoever became the president would hire everybody that worked for the government. So all the loyalties will be for that president, that party. It wasn't until in the 1880s when they started a civil service system under Chester A. Arthur, which made it you had to take a civil service exam to say, hey, you were competent in that one. Because before that, the spoil system, it made a lot of corruption. Because usually back then, before the 1900s, USA made most of the budget was the tariff.
Yeah.
So every time they raised the tariffs, they would have more money in the budget, right? But they would hire the people that would work at the customs houses that would collect the money, and some of those guys turned out to be corrupt, or they were incompetent in what they were doing. They were doing the wrong math, Yeah. So when they did that civil service exam, the president no longer had that personal power to appoint those people. They were appointed based on merits and their training and their talents.
Yeah, it's a very, if you analyze everything that is happening right now, I really think that you start understanding why the people was asking for this change, And it's a society that, I don't know, it's my perception, but I think that we start getting a weak society. And this is not just happening in the United States. If you analyze what is happening in Europe, it's for some reason, we are not having the same power that we had in the past. And you start seeing these emerging countries that start growing a lot. And that is happening in Middle East, and it's happening with Dubai, and it's happening with China, and it's happening with all these countries that start growing, and they start promoting a lot of things that I don't know that is the best. Like
Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Look what they did. They actually bribed FIFA to get the
World Cup.
Yeah. Like Qatar. Crazy. They have no history in the football, Qatar. Yeah. Never played.
I don't talk about history, You know what is, I think is it's just the way that they manage everything in the World Cup was terrible. It's you see the numbers of how many people die building these stadiums and nobody say nothing, or the women that don't have any right to just drive.
Oh, yes.
It's what the fuck happened, But everything is money. So this is a thing that for me is the biggest concern, because you can get everything with money, and these people have their resources.
Oh, yes.
This is why it's so important to make the transition between the oil to alternative, forms of energy.
Look at Venezuela. They have more oil than all the Saudi Arabia and all these countries combined.
Yeah, but it's the corruption. This is the perfect example to see how the corruption can kill your country.
Yes, it can.
Venezuela have the most biggest reserve of petroleum, the oil in the world. If you analyze, for example, Colombia, Venezuela have big reserve of gold. You know?
Yes.
Amazing. Beautiful countries with beautiful people that they have everything. They have the biodiversity. He have everything. And you see how the corruption destroy these countries. You see it with Argentina. Like Milei is the finally, after 20-something years.
Actually, it was almost 30-something years.
Yeah, it's crazy. When you start talking
Of
with the
course.
Argentinian people, you see that all these ideas are inside of the people's mind that is so difficult to change.
Yes, every year that Argentinian peso was collapsing.
Yeah.
That's how bad it was. It's like, that Bolivar in Venezuela. You could just use it for toilet paper.
It's interesting because, look, we have so many cases that is happening right now. You see what is happening with Bukele?
Oh, yes.
And it's coming Milei for first time in Argentina after 30 years, and he come with a really strong plan, and he start to recover in the economy.
Actually, Bukele had it much tougher than he did. Remember, Bukele had to start at zero. Because remember, before Bukele, it was the corrupt governments, but it was that civil war. And MS-13 and the other gang, they were armed, and they were gangs in L.A., and they were back in the 80s. They were
they moved to
they were deported to El Salvador, Guatemala, Nicaragua, and all these countries, and they started doing all their gang banging stuff. So obviously, no El Salvadorian government wanted to do anything about it. All they were like, hey, we'll talk to them quietly. Hey, we'll give you money. You'll just be quiet. But Bukele came in. He's like, he tried to, starting to try to talk to him a little bit. But of course, they started to do that. They did like a massive slaughter that one day, and then Bukele said, okay, I declare a state of emergency. So he shut everything down. He had the police and the army move in, arrest everybody that had those tattoos, MS-13 or whatever the other gang was, and he put them in all those prisons. And also they restored order in those prisons, and he built that new prison sector, it's called, in 7 months. But they put all the kingpins and their gangbangers in, and the other prisoners, they moved them out to more rehabilitational prisons. They're learning skills, so they could go back, as productive citizens. And another plus thing about Bukele is that after 5 years from the most dangerous country in the world, it is the safest country, one of the safest countries in the Western Hemisphere.
It's crazy.
It's like. And you see all these Bitcoin people are going there because he made it the second legal tender of El Salvador. And you see all these people, El Salvadorians, are coming back because they're like, hey, I could go back home now. Police is, not corrupt. They're patrolling the country. The army's actually doing their job. The president's for the people, not for, all those goons and everything there were before. And so, right now, you'll see El Salvador is going to be the new hottest country to invest in.
It's crazy because he was able to change this country in a short time, And when you start seeing, when you start doing the things good, you start seeing a really change. And this is, I think, that is the good message. And he turns in aspirational figure in Latin America because start appearing people that want to be like him, And I understand that a lot of media and a lot of people is attacking because he's taking strong decisions. But like I said to you a few days ago, to change a country that level of shit, you need to do take really strong decisions, And it's happening in Argentina right now. It's two different cases, but starting with Bukele, starting with Argentina, and starting with Trump in the United States, you start seeing it's the beginning of a movement, but Latin America need to change, because you have this, unfortunately in Colombia, I'm from Colombia, and for the first time the left take the power in this country. and the situation is not good.
Oh, Gustavo Petro, you talking about?
Yeah, and if you see Mexico, the new president of Mexico,
Claudia Sheinbaum?
yeah, is
Oh, it's going crazy over there now.
or you see Venezuela,
Maduro.
and you see Bolivia. So it's like it's a lot of left moving because all this movement is starting in the 2000s and it's starting invading all the continent, and it's like, okay, what is happening, So for first time, I started seeing a light, like, okay, this could be the beginning of a big movement, because my perception is if United States really focus the economy in like a whole continent, this continent can be so amazing, But right now we're so divided. We're so divided that, look, South America have the potential to be the biggest economy in the world.
Oh, yes, they do.
They speak the same language.
Except for Brazil, they speak Portuguese.
Yeah.
But, Guyana, they speak English. Suriname, they speak Dutch. And, French Guinea is part of the EU with France.
But just take the number of millions of people that have part of that continent that even have a very similar belief.
Oh, yeah, and they should be under a common market, like, the EU.
Yeah, exactly. The
Open
perfect
borders.
example is Europe, with the difference that Europe is getting old, and Europe, we're going to start seeing a really bad decadence of Europe right now. If they don't switch the things, it's going to get really bad because the population is getting very old, and it's not coming more new babies. So we have a crisis right now, and it's happening in Spain, it's happening in Germany, it's happening in Switzerland, it's happening in Italy. It's crazy. It's crazy because they have so much power and so much influence around the world, but they're losing. They're getting really behind of everything right now,
Yeah.
And if they don't change that perception, or United States dictate that position, or we have China and Middle East trying to take a portion of everything,
If you look at it, a lot of those economies are not that strong in Europe. Like, Germany, it's like less than 1% growth, like point something, 0 point something. Like the only country that's really growing that has not had any, recession is Poland.
Yeah.
That's the best country out there.
I want to make the last question for you. So we talk about the economy, we talk about immigration, but one of the biggest topics is what is happening around the world right now with the wars, So we have the Russia fighting with Ukraine, and we have Palestine with Israel in a big conflict right now.
With Lebanon and Iran involved in too.
So Donald Trump said, in 5 minutes, he can finish the war between, Ukraine and Russia. What do you think about this? He's going to be able to stop this? What do you think that is going to be the strategy?
Well, what I think he might do is cut the support to Ukraine to force Zelensky into the table with Putin. But here's another thing is that some people do want to do that because, people are thinking in Ukraine, why are we sending our husbands, our sons, our brothers to fight in the war, which our politicians and their kids are not even in the army. They're not even fighting for the country. You know where they are? They're all over Poland. They're all over the EU. They're like driving nice cars. Like they're driving around. They're doing whatever, It's disgusting. Yeah. I think that it's time to force him.
I think that with this situation, Putin is going to win a lot,
Yes.
I think that is not fair what he's doing. He take a big part of Ukraine. United States stopped funding this, He stopped funding Ukraine. Russia is going to take all this territory. So I just try to put you the sample. In Poland, Russia in the past have territory inside of Poland, So if I made that question for you instead of Ukraine, and you're saying you as a Poland guy, how you feel when you have a person that is taking this decision that affect your country, It's complicated, It's complicated. The situation, of course, need to have a really strong decision to finish this. But it's when we talk, okay, how much is going to win Russia with this? Because it's going to get a lot of big part of Ukraine.
Yes, he is. The Donetsk region, Zaporizhzhia, and all those regions. And plus, the Polish government is investing over $1 billion in new military hardware. Tanks from Korea, all these weapons from USA. We're getting the F-35s. No, Russia's fine with old equipment. But they're keeping their economy good, which it proved all these people, like the one guy that wrote all the sanctions back in 2022, he was proved wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a big conflict, and
It's a big paradox.
yeah. Do you have the opportunity to
It's a war that USA is heavily involved in. No, they're saying the armaments, the tanks, everything to Ukraine, so they wouldn't have to put American boots on the ground. But if we let Putin get what he wants, then you'll see in a couple of years, you'll see American troops boots on the ground.
Oh yeah.
Because if
You don't do this thing for free. Trust me.
if they conquer Ukraine, then they're gonna say, "Oh, I want the Baltics. I want Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania." But guess what? Those two countries are EU countries and they're NATO.
Yeah.
And obviously, Trump says, "Well, I better see you having 3% of your budget GDP going towards your military." And guess what? All those three countries in the Baltics, they spend more than 3% combined.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you, Gabu. I really appreciate the conversation. Thank you so much for this is our first episode recording person to person. And I really want to say thank you for being in MBT Podcast.
all right, you're welcome. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you.